Welcome to another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum where all voices matter. Well, the province of Ontario is Canada's economic engine, representing nearly 40% of Canada's GDP. The province is not without its challenges, however, and we're delighted to welcome back to Boom and Bust the Honourable Peter Bethlenfalvy. He's Ontario's Minister of Finance and the MPP for Pickering, Uxbridge. Welcome back to the show, Peter.
It's great to be back on your show, Tony.
I guess the first thing, I'd love to get your sense of it. I sort of tried to, in the intro, describe the importance of Ontario in the Canadian and world economies, but how would you characterize the state of Ontario's economy right now?
Well, I describe it in different ways. You're right. We've been historically the economic engine of Canada. We have a diversified economy here in Ontario. We have proximity to the largest market in the world, in the US, right at our border. So we're in a very good position. We're blessed with many natural resources and a great manufacturing sector. So I would say on the positive side, our government has been very focused on making it easier to do business and grow a business in Ontario. We've been very successful in attracting investment, new manufacturing jobs, high-tech jobs, healthcare workers, and a range of jobs and industries, mining. So very, very good there. And, we've seen it in the results, whether it's capital investment, venture capital, you name it, it's coming into Ontario. That said, the environment we're in, we're seeing, in a period of private sector forecasters downgrading their economic forecast, not just here in Ontario and Canada, but, in the world. And so we have to be mindful that the environment that we're in. I feel very good, though, because we have a very clear plan for the people of Ontario. We campaigned on that plan to build Ontario. We got a resounding yes from the people of this great province to move forward with our plan to rebuild the economy, build the infrastructure, support our labor, and get workers working on those projects. So we're encouraged by that.
Yeah, and I'd love to delve deeper into some of those aspects, which we will do later on in the show. Just to sort of paint the complete picture, what's the state of the government of Ontario's books right now?
Well, we're financially we're doing better. We were the beneficiary last year of a rebound once we successfully came out of COVID. To see business growth, economic growth, much greater than economists had forecasted. Inflation, as you know, was higher than most had forecasted. So we had that environment, and we were able, in that point in time of last year's books, to book a surplus. So $2.1 billion, which we put to the accumulated debt. Now we're seeing an environment which I just mentioned. Economic forecasters are downgrading their projections, and so we're in a different environment. But what I'm confident in is that we've got the plan to kind of get through it, and we've got a plan that I'm confident that people and workers and businesses of Ontario will get through.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more. As you just mentioned, a lot of private sector economists are projecting for Canada a earlier and harder recession, perhaps earlier in the new year. So how does Ontario and how do you, as the Minister of Finance, prepare for that?
Well, we make sure that we have a clear and transparent plan for the people to look at. So our financials are out there. I go out every 90 days and tell the people of Ontario, here's our financial health, here's how we spent your money, and here's how we're continuing to build Ontario. So, that gives markets and people a lot of confidence that regardless what's around the corner, that we have the capacity and the plan and the confidence to deal with that environment. And the other thing, Tony, is that the short-term things will happen, economies go up and down, but we're thinking very much the long-term as well. And what's so critical here, and I'm going to use the word critical, we're refashioning the whole automotive supply chain here in Ontario. This is really phenomenal work that's being done, where we've attracted over $16 billion of new investment in Ontario for auto manufacturing. We haven't seen that in 2 decades. In fact, we saw the opposite, jobs leaving the province. Now jobs are coming back, capital's coming back, and most of that money, that investment is going into electric vehicle manufacturing. So we plan to be the electric vehicle capital of North America. Now, you got to have batteries to go into those electric vehicles. We've announced an historic investment.
Minister, we're just going to take a brief break. Peter, I had to break for commercial. I hope you understand. But you were making a great point about really an historic investment in Ontario's auto sector. You say it hasn't been done in 2 decades. I venture to say perhaps even longer than that. So please continue with how this transformation gets us into the electric vehicle sector and some of the other supply chain expanding that's going to go on as part of that.
Yeah, I get so excited. I could go on for a long time. So where I was is on the battery manufacturing to go into those electric vehicles, a historic investment by Stellantis and in Windsor, along with a Korean company LG, to develop batteries. And of course, the batteries that to manufacture those, you need the critical minerals, the cobalt, the lithium, and nickel, and a whole bunch of other things, which we have right here in Ontario. We don't have to go to China. We don't have to go to Russia. They're right here. So we're opening up the North, bringing prosperity to the First Nations of the North, where those critical minerals are, which is, allowing us to have the supply chain go from the critical minerals mining to the battery manufacturing to the electric vehicles. And Ontario is really leading North America in that regard. So I'm very excited. And you do that that's not going to happen overnight. That's a long-term vision. And that's how we're going to build really good jobs in Ontario and Tony, bigger paychecks for the working families of Ontario.
Peter, when you were approaching these major investors who are coming in to rebuild our auto sector, was that one of the key selling points? What were the selling points? Was it the supply chain, or was it the investment environment? How did you package it for these investors?
It's a lot of things, Tony. I'll give you some examples. 94% of our electricity in Ontario is carbon-free. That's very important to these manufacturers, that they, as we go to a zero-emission world, where's the best place? Low footprint in Ontario is amongst the best, 94%. We're working on the last 6%, which actually segues to Pickering Nuclear Station. We're looking at extending that. We have world-class nuclear assets, world-class scientists, engineers. Of course, that'll all happen with the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission's approval. The experts have to do that. But that's part of the future, to be able to generate the electricity. And it goes even further than that. In Hamilton and in Sault Ste. Marie, the steel production by Dofasco and Algoma, respectively, has typically been done by coal. We're working together with the federal government, provincially, and those manufacturers to convert them to electricity, which is in progress now, to make it clean steel or green steel. So from end to end, Ontario has a fantastic story, whether it's electricity, manufacturing, skilled labor, position in the markets, and a mentality to kind of get things done and bring those jobs to Ontario.
Can we switch back just a little bit to cost of living? Obviously, the inflation numbers came out and just recently, and cost of living, cost of groceries, still a big issue out there. So what's your assessment of the situation, and how is Ontario meeting those concerns?
Well, first off, yeah, you're right. Inflation is came down again this morning, but it's still very high, and people are feeling the pinch. Whether they go to the grocery store, whether they have to pay rent, or they have to fill up at the gas station. And I very much understand that. Tony, you and I have been around long enough to remember in the 80s, inflation got to almost 20%, and interest rates got to 12%. So, we will get through this. And to help people get through this, we've done a bunch of things, and we continue to monitor how we're doing these things. But you'll recall back in the spring, we took off the license plate stickers from the cars. So, we got almost 8 million drivers in this province. So if your car comes up for renewal in October, you're not paying the $120 to renew it. That's money in your pocket. We reduced the gas tax by 5.7 cents a liter for 6 months. Just this month, the minimum wage was increased to $15.50 here in Ontario. That's the second highest in the country. And we've just in my recent budget, passed additional measures that low-income workers can take more of that money home, that they're paying less tax. In fact, some of the lowest, in fact, the lowest personal income tax for low-income workers in the country is right here in Ontario. And we also have some things that are coming through in the tax year that's just going to end this year. So they'll get money back early in 2023, like the staycation tax credit. We encourage people that if you travel in Ontario, stay at an Ontario bed and breakfast or hotel or whatever, you can family can get up to $400 back into their pockets for traveling in Ontario. So that'll hit their pocketbooks in early in the new year. And let me just say this, Tony, we
Yep.
continue to monitor the situation, and we understand some of the challenges
Sure.
people are going through.
And we're back here at Boom and Bust. I'm here with my special guest, the Honourable Peter Bethlenfalvy. He's Ontario's Minister of Finance. Peter, earlier on in this interview, you did allude to some of the massive infrastructure investments that are part of the government's agenda. Maybe go through that a little bit and how important that is to the future economy of Ontario.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, it ranges from the critical minerals that we talked about, infrastructure in the far north, building roads, access to those minerals, good paying jobs. It goes to building more highways right across the province. You know, we get 200,000 people into this province every year from abroad. Many will require housing. We need housing. They'll need highways so they can take their kids to school. We're building public transit, historic, largest ever investment to move people in urban settings. You know, underground, through subways, through light rail, healthcare. You know, we're building hospitals right across the province. We have an aging population. The long-term care facilities, there weren't enough built over the last couple of decades. Certainly in the last 7 years in my riding in Pickering, 0 new beds built by the previous government till 2018. We've committed to building over 30,000. And in fact, in Ajax Pickering Hospital, 320 new beds were built right beside the hospital, a new long-term care facility. We built it in 13 months. So we have to think not only about today, shovels in the ground today, but we got to think about what we're going to look like 5 or 10 years from now, and as well the people. If you're not building schools, if you're not building hospitals, if you're not building these infrastructure, you don't need new nurses and personal support workers and skilled trades. So we've got a very robust plan to make sure that we've got the labor, good paying jobs, bigger paychecks for building that infrastructure.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because this infrastructure, of course, has many positive multiplier effects. And how are we paying for that infrastructure, though? Is that coming out of government bonds, or is there private investment? How does that work?
Well, we have a fiscal plan, and we've shown the people of Ontario how we plan to finance every year. I think what's so important is not only having that plan, so you can look at my budget, that we came back to the legislature, by the way, this summer, the only Canadian legislature to come back, provincial, to actually deal with things like affordability, to deal with infrastructure, to keep things moving forward. So we've got a very transparent plan. We ran on that plan. And so we need to keep updating the people. I'll do that by the fall economic statement, which I have to table on or before November 15th. And I think there you can see our fiscal plan, that it's very responsible and very prudent, and at the same time making those critical investments. Because if we don't make those investments, you're just kicking the can down the road. And I don't think that's what we got elected to do. We got elected to not kick the can, but build the can today.
So you've got the fall statement coming up later next month, and then, of course, you'll be into the budget cycle early into the new year. I know enough not to ask you what's going to be in those documents, but maybe just open the window for our guests, for our viewers a little bit. What sort of factors do you look at when you're kind of structuring the government's plans, the fiscal plans, and so on? What sorts of things are on your mind and the Premier's mind when you're building a budget or building a fall economic statement?
Well, I think two things I would say really go in your mind. You're dealing with the short-term situation that you've got. You've always got the environment that you're in. We talked about the cost of living for many. You're constantly looking at that. But the other thing which I'm really alluding to, is you've got to have a long-term plan, which we have in our budget that we took to the people, and provide an update on that plan. So, are you getting shovels in the ground? What progress are you making? Opening up the north and the critical minerals up there. What progress are you making on drilling new subways? What progress are you making on getting houses built, getting new hospitals built? So I think that you think both in the short term and you got to think in the long term, and that's what makes for, I think, a good combination to drive the province forward with those jobs and the economy, and help people with day to day expenses that we all have.
And I think I should make this point on behalf of you, but there's a lot of consultation that goes into these the documents, not only with market experts, but also with business people, including small and medium-sized business owners. All of that is necessary to make sure the plan is a credible plan, because you don't want to see any chaos in the markets. I'm thinking of the UK right now and what happened when they did a 180 on government policy, didn't consult with enough people, and all hell broke loose. And welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with our special guest, the Honourable Peter Bethlenfalvy. He's Ontario's Minister of Finance, and I should also mention, once in a while, he's the MPP for Pickering, Uxbridge. Very proud member of provincial parliament, I can assure you of that. And that's sort of leads into my next question, Peter. It is a small business month in the province of Ontario, and I know you do a lot of consultation with small businesses, not only in your riding, but throughout the province. What are you hearing from small and medium-sized business owners these days?
Well, it's a range of things, and you mentioned before the break about the consultations. We do that 24/7 right through the year. But I got to tell you, the best consultation is talking to the people right locally, in all 124 of us, 83 on the side of the Conservatives, talking to our constituents. And I knocked on thousands of doors in the election, and so you hear from not only individuals and families, but they're workers. They work in businesses. And you're right. I love to go to a small business, and anytime they open up, I'm there, congratulating them and supporting them. And I go back there to find out, how they're doing. And a couple of things. One, the environment that we're in, higher interest rates are taking a pinch into small businesses. Finding labor, that I hear that everywhere I go. I can't find workers. So that's a theme. The positive side is that demand has picked up. Clearly, we've had a rough ride through 2 years of COVID. I think we came through that. Ontario did really well. The people of Ontario did the best under the circumstances. So a bit of a rebound there. But businesses, small businesses, are not immune from the economic environment that we're seeing. So we focus on things like making their costs, whether it's electricity or red tape or fees. We're always looking at ways to make things easier and lower cost and simpler for them, so the businesses can compete and they can win customers and take care of their employees. And it's, we're going to keep at it.
And that's an interesting point. Red tape. Let's talk about that for a second, because what's the goal there? Can Ontario be a jurisdiction that has a red tape, a regulatory burden that's less than its competitors?
Has to be. We have to be. We're not an island here in Ontario, and we have a red tape minister, someone fully dedicated to looking at red tape. And they, just so everyone understands, red tape, for safety and security is important that we have standards. But really, what drives businesses and people away is if it takes forever to get an answer, or you can't operate your business, and there's uncertainty. So we're providing a more efficient sort of regulations, less regulations, more of a client or customer friendly environment for them to get answers, automating as much as we can, streamlining processes. So a lot of things go into reducing red tape. And we have to remember, we're competing against not only Canadian provinces, we're competing against, Ohio, Michigan, New York, and all the states in the US. So it's a thing that we're relentless about, and we're very driven by the Premier has shown tremendous leadership on this. And I think it's having an impact on allowing small businesses to thrive.
We've got about a minute left, Peter. Maybe just do a little bit of a plug. I know you're colleague, Vic Fideli, has been working very hard to attract new business investment to Ontario. That seems to be going well.
Where we started off talking about, when you're looking at where should I put my new facility? Should I put it in Ohio? Should I put it in Ontario? Should I put it in Europe? We've got so many advantages right here in Ontario, a well-educated and trained labor force, an environment that is very conducive to competing, cutting that red tape. And so Vic has done a tremendous job, as has the Premier and the whole caucus. A lot of business. I'm a business guy. I came from the private sector. A mindset to allow businesses to thrive because they're hiring people, and those are good jobs. And we want those to be the jobs of today and tomorrow. We're putting a lot of money into retraining and reskilling as well. Monty McNaughton's done a terrific job of helping the skilled trades and attracting more immigration into Ontario and making it faster to get credentialed here in Ontario. So all these things contribute to making the environment for growth here in Ontario economically and for families and for workers the best place.
Peter Bethlenfalvy, thanks so much for being on Boom and Bust again. It's been a great pleasure, and I certainly wish you well in your continued work.
Great to be with you as always, Tony. Thank you.
Special thank you to the Honourable Peter Bethlenfalvy, Ontario's Minister of Finance, for coming on the program. I think he was just about to rush into a cabinet meeting that was just about to start, so we appreciate the time he took. I hope you found it interesting and informative about the future of the Ontario economy. Thanks for watching.